I am 85 years old as I write this. My hands are slower now. My steps are careful. Mornings arrive quietly, without urgency. But my memories, especially the ones that matter, are sharper than ever. When the noise of life fades, truth becomes clearer, and one truth stands above all others. I have walked with God for more than 50 years, and that walk shaped everything that followed. I did not always understand God. I did not always feel close to Him, and I certainly did not live a perfect life. But I followed Him, sometimes confidently, sometimes reluctantly, sometimes only because I had nowhere else to turn. People often assume that faith makes life easy. At my age, I know better. Faith did not protect me from loss, fear, or failure. What it gave me was something deeper: direction when I was lost, protection when I did not even know danger was near, and peace when nothing else could quiet my heart. When I look back now, there are 3 moments that stand out. 3 encounters when God made Himself unmistakably real to me. Not through thunder or miracles that others could see, but through timing, protection, and presence that I could not deny. Those moments carried blessings that followed me for decades. The first time I encountered God in a way I could never dismiss happened when I was 36 years old. At that point in my life, I had already decided to follow God, but only recently my faith was sincere, but still untested. I prayed, I read scripture occasionally, I tried to live more carefully, but I still relied mostly on my own judgment. I believed faith and real life operated side by side, not intertwined. That belief was tested one afternoon in early autumn. I was scheduled to take a late evening drive to meet a business associate in another city. It was a routine trip, one I had made several times before. I left work around 4:30 p.m. and planned to head straight out after a quick stop at home. At 5:15 p.m., as I stood in my kitchen gathering my things, I felt an unexpected hesitation. It was not fear, it was not anxiety, it was a firm sense that I should not leave yet. No reason came with it, just a strong impression. Wait. I ignored it. I picked up my keys and walked toward the door. Halfway there, the feeling returned stronger this time. I stopped. I stood there for nearly a full minute, confused and irritated with myself. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before. I decided to sit down and wait 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes became 30. At 6:02 p.m., the phone rang. It was a colleague calling to tell me that a serious multi-vehicle collision had occurred on the exact stretch of highway I would have been driving at that time. A truck had lost control. Several cars were involved. One vehicle, matching my car's description, had been struck directly. Traffic was shut down for hours. I sat there in silence, the phone still in my hand. Later that night, the full details came out. The timing, the location, the lane. Had I left when I intended to, I would have been there without question. That was the moment everything changed for me. I did not feel excitement. I did not feel pride. I felt small and deeply aware that what had just happened was not coincidence. There was no logical reason for my delay, no external interruption, only restraint. That night, I prayed differently than I ever had before, not asking, not explaining, just acknowledging, you were there, and I listened. The lesson was clear, and it has stayed with me for nearly 50 years. God's protection often comes as interruption, not escape, and obedience sometimes looks like nothing more than stopping when you are used to moving. That encounter did not make me fearless, but it made me attentive. From that day forward, I stopped dismissing quiet conviction as imagination. I learned that God does not always shout to save us. Sometimes, He simply asks us to pause. That decision to listen gave me decades I would not otherwise have had. But the next encounter with God would be very different. The next time, He would not protect me by removing danger. He would protect me by staying with me in loss. The second time I encountered God happened many years later, when I was 59 years old. By then, I had been walking with God for more than 2 decades. Faith was no longer new to me. I had seen His guidance. I had trusted His restraint. I believed He was present in my life. But I had also begun to assume quietly, without admitting it, that obedience might spare me from deep personal loss. I was wrong. The year began normally. My health was stable. My family life was settled. Nothing suggested that everything was about to change. Then, in late spring, my wife began experiencing persistent fatigue and shortness of breath. At first, we dismissed it as stress. By June, the symptoms worsened. By July, we were sitting in a small examination room, listening as a doctor explained test results that left no room for misunderstanding. The diagnosis was serious. In the weeks that followed, our lives narrowed to hospital corridors, appointment schedules, and waiting rooms. Treatments began immediately. Some days brought cautious hope, others brought silence. I prayed constantly, but my prayers changed. I stopped asking for signs. I stopped trying to bargain. I asked simply for healing. It did not come. In early November, after months of decline, my wife passed away quietly, with me sitting beside her. I remember the exact time. I remember the stillness in the room afterward. I remember walking out of the hospital alone, into a parking lot that felt too large and too empty. That was the first night I felt completely abandoned by God. I did not stop believing, but I stopped speaking. For weeks, I did not pray, not out of anger, out of exhaustion. Faith felt fragile. Words felt useless. I continued daily routines because they were necessary, not because they made sense. Then, one evening in late December, something shifted. I was sitting alone at home, reading without attention, when an unexpected calm settled over me. Nothing external changed. The house was quiet, the grief was still present, but the weight of it lifted just enough for me to breathe fully for the first time in weeks. I realized then that God had not left me. He had not answered my prayer the way I wanted. He had not removed the pain, but He had sustained me when I had nothing left to offer, not even faith expressed in words. The blessing was not relief. The blessing was endurance. Over time, I learned to live with the absence, without being consumed by it. I learned that peace does not mean forgetting loss. It means being held steady within it. That season taught me a truth I could not have learned any other way. God's presence is not proven by outcomes, but by constancy. Now, at 85, I understand that this encounter deepened my faith more than the first one ever could have. Protection had taught me to listen. Loss taught me to trust, even when silence remained. And yet, my walk with God was not finished teaching me. Years later, when the path ahead was unclear and the cost of obedience felt heavier than ever, God would encounter me once more, this time through guidance. The third time I encountered God came later in life, when I was 72 years old. By then, I had already lived through protection and loss. I understood that faith did not guarantee safety or answers, but I believed, perhaps too confidently, that experience itself would now guide me. I assumed wisdom accumulated over time would be enough. I learned again that it was not. At 72, I stood at a crossroads that appeared ordinary on the surface but carried lasting consequences. I had been offered an opportunity to extend my professional work, one that promised financial stability, recognition, and a sense of continued relevance. At the same time, it required a commitment that would pull me away from my family and from the quiet responsibilities I had slowly begun to accept as part of aging. The decision felt urgent. Others encouraged me to take it. The reasoning was sound. Logically, it was the better option. Spiritually, something felt unsettled. For weeks, I delayed my response. I prayed, but without clarity. No conviction came, only silence. I began to grow impatient. After a lifetime of faith, I expected guidance to be obvious. It wasn't. Then one morning, while sitting alone before the day began, A single realization settled firmly in my mind. This path will cost you peace. That was all. There was no argument attached to it, no explanation, but the truth of it was unmistakable. I understood that the opportunity itself was not wrong, but it was not meant for me anymore. I declined the offer that afternoon. The immediate consequences were uncomfortable. Doubt followed quickly. I questioned whether I had acted too cautiously, whether fear had influenced my decision. Financial uncertainty lingered longer than I expected. But over the next year, clarity came. Remaining close to home allowed me to be present during a family crisis I could not have anticipated. It allowed me to serve quietly, without recognition. It gave me time unhurried, meaningful time to reflect, to mentor, and to prepare my heart for a season of life that demands surrender rather than striving. The blessing was not opportunity gained. The blessing was peace preserved. Looking back now, I see that God was not limiting me. He was protecting me from a burden I no longer needed to carry. That encounter taught me something essential about obedience in later life. God's guidance often comes as narrowing, not expansion, and wisdom is knowing when to let go. At 85, I understand that this final encounter completed a pattern. God had protected my life. He had sustained me through loss, and He had guided me toward peace when ambition no longer served me. Those 3 moments, spanning decades, form the core of my testimony. What remains now is not memory, but meaning. Now, at 85, I no longer measure life the way I once did. If you are young and reading this, I want to speak plainly to you. You are surrounded by noise, opinions, expectations, comparisons, urgency. You are told to move fast, to decide quickly, to prove yourself early. I understand the pressure. I lived through my own version of it. Do not wait for faith to feel convenient. If you wait until life slows down to seek God, you may discover that slowing down comes at a cost. Begin walking with Him now, not because you have answers, but because you will need guidance. Following God will not shield you from pain, but it will protect you from being lost. It will give you a compass when decisions matter and consequences follow. And one day, far sooner than you expect, you will be grateful for the ground you laid early. If you are older, perhaps burdened by regret, loss, or the sense that time is narrowed, I want you to know this. It is not too late. God does not measure your life by what you failed to do. He meets you where you are. Faith does not require strength, it requires willingness. Even now, especially now. Some of the deepest peace I have known came in the years when I had nothing left to prove. Let God carry what you can no longer hold. I am 85 years old. I do not know how many years remain. But I know this. I do not regret following God. Not once. Not even in the seasons of silence. If I could live my life again, knowing everything I know now, I would still choose to walk with Him. I would choose the interruptions, the restraint, the waiting, the quiet protection, the peace that came after loss. Because in the end, when the noise fades and the road grows short, what matters is not how fast you moved, but who walked with you. And I did not walk alone.